What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, all parties involved finally respond to the rehydration clause. Mainly, Gervonta Tank Davis, he responds and he's very agitated about this rehydration clause he has with Frank the Ghost Martin June 15th. With that said, Frank Martin and Earl the True Spence Jr., former unified welterweight, now promoter of Frank the Ghost Martin with Man Down Promotions, they respond as well. Now, Errol Spence, he stated, this is out the hands of Gervonta Tank Davis. He just don't have no control of it. Frank Martin, he stated that it is what it is. It's just the rules, right? He says that there's also a rematch clause that Gervonta Tank Davis placed on me, right? Obviously, that's for safety reasons. Gervonta Tank Davis is a big deal in the sport of boxing. He's a world champion, and he wants to, make sure that he has insurance, period, right? Should he lose, he wants to make sure that he can get his lick back. You had situations where Lennox Lewis was shockingly knocked out by Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. And if he didn't have a rematch clause, they may have went about their business and he may have been left out in the cold. But he was able to come back and rectify those two knockout losses with his own two memorable knockout wins, right? And so as far as the rematch clause goes with Frank Martin, that's just a given. As a matter of fact, I personally think that there should be a rule in place. If you're a world champion, you should be owed a rematch clause depending upon how long you was a champion. If you had at least 3 title defenses, you should be automatically in your contract awarded a rematch clause, right? Just out of respect and out of your work, right? And out of your resume. But as far as this 10-pound rehydration clause, this is a different story. This is a story that the WBA, World Boxing Association President Gilberto Mendoza, and the WBA have adopted from Mr. Darryl Peebles of the IBF, the International Boxing Federation. Just the next day 10-pound rehydration clause, where the fighter can't gain more than 10 pounds after initial weigh-in. The next morning, they have another weigh-in. Okay, about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, the next day, the day of the fight. And so it's to limit how much a fighter has an advantage as far as weight gain goes. So with that said, Gervonta Tank Davis, he responds, and he's very agitated. And he stated he don't know nothing about this. He's not aware of it. And then he stated, if it is the case, it's out of his control. He didn't place this on him, right? And obviously I'm paraphrasing because Gervonta Tank Davis is frustrated because he's being blamed for this rehydration clause, this new rule from the WBA. Now, Errol Spence, he responds, as I told you, and Errol Spence, he stated, this is just a new rule with the WBA. This is not going to drastically affect Frank Martin, nor is it going to affect Gervonta Tank Davis, or any other fighter for that matter. Because after you weigh in the next morning, the day of the fight, you can rehydrate to as much as your body will allow it to. So it's not like he has to get in a ring 10 pounds and that's it. He can only rehydrate 10 pounds. Now, that was the case with Ryan Garcia. This is something that Errol Spence did for years before he unified the belts against Sean Porter in 2019. For 2 years, Errol Spence was the IBF world champion, okay? Now, this is the way the rules operate. If it's a unification bout or undisputed bout, you do not have the rehydration clause because all parties involved don't go by the same rules. So if the WBC and the WBO was involved, in this case now the WBA, this was only the IBF, but now the WBA is involved. If it's a unification bout or undisputed bout, this 10-pound rehydration clause for the next day is null and void. It doesn't count. But when you Errol Spence, he won the titles in May of 2017 from Kell Brook, the IBF title. Errol Spence, all the way up until his fight September of 2019 against Showtime Sean Porter 2 years later, when he unified the belts, he had to abide by these rules, right? Errol Spence had to do the next day weigh-in 10-pound rehydration clause for 2 years. And Errol Spence is a big guy, okay? And Errol Spence wasn't even disciplined in between fights. He was allowing himself to balloon up in weight in between fights. So therefore, when you are Frank Martin, who stays in shape, who lives in the gym, this should be non-effective, right? It should not affect you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The problem is that people are looking at Gervonta Tank Davis' situation with himself and Ryan Garcia April of last year, where he put a 10-pound rehydration clause and a catch weight on Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia was 2 years and 2 fights removed from fighting at 135. He made him fight at 136 with a 10-pound rehydration clause in the ring. Now, that's a completely different story. He couldn't gain more than 10 pounds in the ring. In this case, Frank Martin can gain after the next day, the morning of the fight weigh-in, he can gain another 8 to 10 pounds if his body allows it. So it's a completely different story. But because you have that label from the Ryan Garcia fight, if you Gervonta Tank Davis, well, then people are going to place this blame on you. Rightfully so, because we've seen this movie before. But in this case, as I stated, it's a completely different story. It's not the same thing. And so, Gervonta Tank Davis doesn't deserve the blame because this is not something that Gervonta Tank Davis asked for. He's not putting this stipulation on Frank Martin, and that's just that. So this is what Tank Davis had to say. Quote, "I'm not sure what is going on, what y'all talking about." I'm paraphrasing. "But if it is true, y'all telling me I have enough power to tell the WBA what to do, I don't even know what's going on," right? And I'm paraphrasing. So he's saying that, and people are responding and they're saying this, quote, "So you are not the face of boxing?" Question mark. Then somebody else said, quote, "You paid them dudes, don't lie," right? And then somebody else put, "Tank Davis ducking as usual." So he's getting a lot of kickback from this, and he doesn't even know what's going on. But I'm sure he's aware of it now, right? So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But we know he could put the stipulation in the contract because he did it with Ryan Garcia. But in this case, he didn't do it, and he's saying he can't force the WBA to make this rule. And people are saying, well, what that mean? You ain't the face of boxing? So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. That's all I got for y'all. I'm gone. Peace.